Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Without all of us showing up here, we would not have a Sangha. We would not have the meditation town hall. I think I've attended just about every one of the master classes that Lama Surya has done. And I'm very much looking forward to the one coming up. Practicing with my teachers, Nyoshul Kempo, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, Kalu Rinpoche, and the 16th Karmapa. That's coming Saturday, December 9th. I will send you a link to register for that as we get started. Leading the meditation today is Suzanne Woodland, a senior student of Lama Surya. Suzanne, the floor is yours, or the meditation stool is yours.
Thank you very much, Mel. So wonderful to be with you. It's morning here in New Hampshire. As Mel said, I'm Suzanne, and as sort of came up in the retreat that I had the good fortune to be able to attend a couple weeks ago now, 2 weeks ago. I'm the Suzanne in New Hampshire, the one with the chickens. It did occur to me as I was offered the opportunity to lead this morning that I really felt like, well, I could introduce you to my chickens so that you don't take anything too seriously, just serious enough to bring some good effort, a very kindly and playful effort to all of our time together. So alas, I could not find a good way to introduce you to the 14, laying hens in a way that I thought would work satisfactorily for this format. But just know, typically, if you see my face on the screen, which many of you do, probably in the little squares on our Sunday mornings together, there are usually chickens out in the yard, and they're quite colorful and help me make sure that I'm engaging in kind of the right attitude, shall we say, as we go through the practice together. What I thought I would share today is, I know not everyone was able to get to the retreat in California. And so what I'm hoping to do today is, for those of you who were not able to attend, just kind of give you a few little bits and pieces and highlights, if you will, of a couple of things that came up, at least for me in the retreat, and that might be helpful for you as we do our practice today. And I have intentionally asked Mel not to pin me or spotlight me, because typically what we're often doing at the beginning, as you know, is we're bowing in. And we're recognizing in that bowing in our own potential, our own divine within, our own Buddha nature within. And it's within us, and it's within each of you. And really, that is what we're looking to just release and make shine. And so I thought, by not making me the focus, visually trying to help you really connect with the divine in your seat, that brilliance within your own heart, mind, and with each and every one of us in our own kind of practice realms and the way we manifest and move through the world. So take a moment. I bow to all of you, to my own potential. I think sometimes you hear things so often. How often has Lama Surya said, I bow to the Buddha in your seat, and he means it. He really means it. And that we all have that potential within us. So if you would like to see my face big on the screen, you are welcome to change your view. On the other hand, if you, like me, sometimes really enjoy kind of the lusciousness of the coming together of people who, from very different sort of walks of life, are looking to kind of unfold, to live more compassionately, wisely, joyfully, leave it in the view you've got. Your choice. I'm not going to know, so I'm not going to care. Okay? So there's your welcome and your offering to that space, and really trusting. So, a couple things came out of the retreat that I think are worth acknowledging before we dive into practice. And you've kind of seen it if you've attended these meditation town halls particularly in the last 6 to 9 months, and it, I think, was very prominent in our retreat setting, is that we have many examples of ways to practice and to connect and to unfold. So Lama Surya brought with us into the retreat setting Lama Roger Walsh, who some of you have seen here on Meditation Town Hall. And he has a very different voice and kind of way he moves through and embodies his practices. And then we have, Kelly Amadei, who is so often with us. And again, rich and lovely, different voice. So same teachings, but different ways to connect very authentically, working with what you have and kind of your natural kind of proclivities, if that's the word I'm looking for. You've heard from Jonathan, he's a lawyer, a litigator. His lovely wife, Elizabeth, who's, spent years as an opera singer. Pete, who brings his music. And what I love is, sometimes we just need to hear, it's the same message, right? So we're going to do the same practices we always do. But sometimes that different voice or seeing how it can manifest so beautifully in completely different circumstances. I mean, I should put my disclaimer on, like, oh no, she's not only a lawyer, she works for the government, right? Trust me, I get some teasing, and I have over the 20 plus years of running around with different Buddhist communities. You're like, you do what? It's like, yeah. Great practice, what I can tell you. So I think that's part of what I think is really lovely about the way Lama Surya approaches sort of his offering of these Dzogchen teachings, of the very simple instructions of really how to find that joy and that compassion and that wisdom that is naturally there when we get out of our own way through working with our meditation practices, first on the cushion or on the seat, and then as we step and move through and into the world. And so that is really, from my perspective, something worth rejoicing. And again, that's the beauty of kind of looking around the screen here. Like, we all have our kind of different ways that we've come up through this. I think the other piece that was a little bit interesting was how the retreat really blended those of us who've been practicing for years, sometimes in one community, sometimes in another, and then those who are fairly new to the whole practice of meditation, the chanting, these different aspects. And I remember the first time I went on retreat with Lama Surya and saw this merger, if you will, of old and new. I thought, wow, that's a little tricky. And yet it's a really lovely opportunity, because you get to see for someone who's been kicking around for a while, there's some joy really in watching people engage with the practices fresh and new and hearing their questions. And like, what is that chanting you all do? And why do you do it? Like, how can that possibly be, something that you'd want to do as part of your practice? And so all of that kind of comes together, and we see that kind of come together on our Sunday mornings together, or it's morning here. And I think that's another kind of unique piece of how Lama Surya tends to unfold the offerings, which is, you've got us old people who've been around. And then you've got these people who are bringing that freshness of, well, what is it that you've got? How, in terms of that joy and that kind of ability to move through different spaces. And how do I release that for myself? How do I find it in my own place? So those are two things that kind of came up for me as I was taking in and digesting after the retreat. So as we get ready to go into our practice together, one of the things that came up during retreat is this, chanting and this intersection of some of the Tibetan chants that are typically done within this Sangha, and then these very practical and ever so useful and lovely meditation instructions. How do those two actually fit together? I can tell you for myself, and I think this may be useful if that piece kind of says, like, what is that all about? How does that fit? There are multiple paths in. So when I first started and became introduced to meditation, and I fell in love with it within 6 weeks, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is how you live a life with a lot less suffering and a lot more compassion. Like, I am a very different person in many ways from who I first was when I started with meditation. And what I would do, instead of the chanting that we often do at the beginning, is I would read a few lines of something inspirational, right? So we often use that chanting or an archetypal form. So can't really tell behind me. I have Padmasambhava behind me here. We use that as an entry point often. When I started, it was bow to my cushion, bow to the world, bow to myself, and then I'd read maybe 2 lines or a poem. And that was how I entered. In this community, we often chant together as a way to kind of engage in that heart space, kind of open things up, give ourselves a little nudge for like, okay, yeah, I'm going to commit the next 40 minutes to kind of work with the light work, the playful work. And again, I think Lama Surya is very good about saying, find that path for you, whether it's that reading the couple of lines, whether it's the chanting, find out that moment in to kind of open up that space, kind of giving yourself that transition. And so one of the things that we heard on retreat, and Lama Raja has done this before for us, is you take that moment and you bring to mind, say, someone who's an example for you of, maybe it's, in my case, sometimes patience, or some, archetypal figure like Tara, as was explored yesterday, and just resonating with that, opening to that, allowing yourself to absorb, if you will, that quality. Sit that quality next to you in the form of a person. And so that can be really helpful. So as we get started, let's just take a moment. I'll chant the 7-line prayer in a moment. But take a moment and see if you can find something that connects for you. For me, I often use what I call my second mother sometimes, if it's not an archetypal form. She was Baha'i, raised 5 children, and then I might have counted as the 6th. Amazingly patient woman. Sometimes that's who I use. Yeah. All right. We'll ring the bell. So the 7-line prayer to Padmasambhava for those for whom you would like to do it. Om Horjen Yojin Huk Chang Sam Pemage Sadong Pola Yatsen Chokjin Udrutne Pema Jumne Jesudrak Koru Kandro Mang Poko Keiki Jesuda Druki Jinji Lapshir Shek Suso Guru Pema Siddhi Om. Hong, at the northwest border of Uddiyana, upon a lotus flower's pistil, you have attained marvelous supreme realization. You are renowned as the lotus born, encompassed by vast retinues of Dakinis. As we practice following in your footsteps, please be present to us in blessing and inspiration. Guru Pema Siddhi Hong. And we'll just close it once with the mantra. Om Ah Hong Benza Guru Pema Siddhi Hong. So, invitation. Take those 3 deep breaths. If you did Tibetan yoga with us, you know that's such a marvelous starting point to your day, throughout the day, beginning of your practice. So inhaling, letting that belly expand. Nice exhale. Second time. Third time. Just cleaning out that any stale chi, the stale energy that's hanging out there in that lower dantian. And then we'll work with, the 3 simple teachings of just sitting, just breathing, just being. As we start with the just sitting, letting that weight drop into the chair or the cushion. And looking for that kind of noble uprightness. And then letting everything else relax. So my Tai Chi teacher often says, it's like having that old-fashioned coat rack. So there's the little bit of structure and the uprightness, and then you hang the coat, the rest of everything else off that central channel, right? That central structure. Letting the hips relax. Letting the spine unwind. invitation to let go of any tension in the jaw. I'll count to 3, and on 3, see if you can relax like twice as much, right? 1, 2, 3. So there's that first instruction. Check the box. Just sitting, relaxed. That easy. Just sitting. And then just breathing. The breath is always there as our helpmate. What I love about the just breathing is that if the mind, as we know, starts to deliver all those sometimes entertaining or worrisome thoughts, there's the breath. Which can be that kind of gentle anchor to our breathing body here. So if you need a bit of a helpmate to kind of stay present, there's the breath. Exhale. Let that worry about Monday's work. Doesn't need to be here right now. You have to push it away if you just bring that breath to it. I find when the thoughts are particularly busy, just watching the breath in the lower part of the body, in that lower dantian, in the hara, can help steady, calm. And then when it's the time's right, you just let go of the attention on the breath in the lower part of the body and rest back into that just sitting and just being. And here's where the chickens are sometimes helpful. It's like, don't work too hard. Bring a little play. And we're just sitting in that relaxed body, pushing nothing away, but trying not to complicate what arises. Yeah. And just being open, open eyes, open heart. Open pores of the skin. Open to everything in this moment. No judging. No striving. Ha! That's mine. Yeah. I often have a lot of joy on the cushion. Really hard not to strive for that sometimes. Do a little check-in with the whole of the body if you need to, that just sitting piece again. Are you holding some tension somewhere? Invitation to let it be, to relax, to enjoy the joy of just sitting. Invitation to use that breath as often as is helpful to you. Take that nice inhale, ride out that exhale. Let yourself just drop off the cliff into being. Nothing to do, nowhere to be, no one to be. right. Take a moment, if you'd like, shake it all out. Think of in our Tibetan energy yoga, for those that have done it, give it a good shake. Oh. How'd you feel after that shake, right? It's right there, right? Yeah. Here we are, just sitting. Not working too hard. Just showing up. Yeah. Body relaxed. Bring in the play. That was the point. Yeah. Finding your breath. And just being. All good, just as it is. Eyes open, ears open, heart and mind open. So I find myself doing more watching of the breath or the thoughts, and I find very helpful Lama's instruction to sometimes quickly flip that mirror. Who or what's doing that? Watch. Who's what? Who's thinking that thought? So feel free to just flip that mirror really quickly. Whatever you do, don't work too hard. Just a little bit of attention. And then relax into that present moment. Let the you get out of the way. Flip that mirror. So I'm going to ring the bell to begin to move us out of the formal practice period. I'm going to give a bit of a pause. So I'll ring the bell and watch, just see what you find in your body, in your mental states after the bell. Now, when you're ready, if you want to bring up the dedication of virtue. We'll do it once in the Tibetan and the English, and then we'll go on to the bodhicitta dedication. Gewadi nududak, zokpa chempo drukyone, drowa chikyang malupa, dei salagopar. Through this virtue, may we swiftly realize and fully embody the natural great perfection, and thereby bring all, without exception, to its complete realization. Jangchup semcho krimposhe, makke panam ke gyorshik, kepa nempa mepa yang, gone gondu palwar shok. May the pure, brilliant sun of bodhicitta dawn in each and every heart and mind, dispelling the darkness of suffering and confusion unstoppably until all are illumined and awakened. When I first discovered the Dzogchen teachings and as Lama Surya shares them, I felt like I'd finally come home. Like, oh, I've been kind of doing this for a long time. I always knew this was there. Having spent years of doing more mindfulness of breathing and metta bhavana and other sort of more structured practices, if you will. And yet often I would find I start with a structured practice and then I would just kind of loosen it and I'd arrive in this precious space that we, are offered to with our just sitting, just breathing, and just being. And that just broad and loving awareness place that makes life so much richer, at least from my perspective. So it's really lovely to come back to the simplicity of these teachings. And I'm very grateful to have more of a language now, to understand, frankly, my experience for the last 25 years. So this is really delightful. What I wanted to do for the last couple of minutes is really, rather than the usual Q&A, I wanted to kind of do a public service announcement. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I work in government. I work in local government. And for some of you, at least, you may have elections on Tuesday for your local government. And I want to encourage you, if this is not something you've really given much thought to before, to really find a way to engage and to participate in your local government. You know, we tend to get caught up in the bigger national issues, and that's fine. Obviously, I'm very happy when people vote in their more national elections. But as a practical matter, so much of your day-to-day sort of conditions in your area are set by local government. They're often your clean water, your wastewater being treated to environmental standards that make it healthy to discharge, the stormwater that runs off the roads, your schools, your senior centers, your recreational programs, particularly for kids who are underserved. These all happen typically at the local level. And I know, my sense is, it can be difficult for sometimes people to figure out how to understand their candidates, because oftentimes local government, it's not nonpartisan. So you won't see a little R or D, after a particular candidate's name, or maybe it just seems less important, or maybe you're just relatively happy with how things are. And so you think, well, we'll just stay that way. I guess I want to really encourage you to look locally. There are ways to do that. You may find, one of your neighbors sits on a conservation board and may have some insight into your local government. Obviously, you can read about the candidates, but I'm not a big fan of actually reading what the candidates say. As opposed to seeing how they actually communicate. That will actually tell you a lot. If you even watch a few of your local meetings, which typically are available online nowadays through YouTube or wherever they post their recordings of their local meetings, you can, do a little cooking, put it on in the background, and you can kind of get a sense of how your current elected officials, local elected officials communicate. And that will tell you a lot. Do they listen respectfully? Do they engage in a discussion with thoughtfulness and respect? Do they seem well prepared? How do they treat the professional staff? That will tell you a lot. Your local government staff, if you haven't figured it out, are paid fairly well to look long-term and strategically. And because we aren't elected every 2 years, sometimes we are more likely to really tell you the truth about what you need to do for your community if you want to achieve certain ends, right? So really look locally, and certainly if you have the time, consider volunteering. There's always a need at the local level for volunteers for various boards and commissions or special projects. And I really think there are so many opportunities, because if we teach citizenship on that local level, how to engage, how to have differences of opinions on how to solve a problem, because often we agree that there's a problem. If you can find and help communicate on that level, you're teaching the skill sets to have that conversation about maybe the tougher issues, right? So that's really my public service announcement for today, which is don't overlook your local government and how you can contribute by casting your vote, by being informed, by volunteering if you have the time in that important realm. So I thank you for your practice today. I had a lovely time on retreat, and I'm really hoping those of you who couldn't make this current retreat have spaciousness and conditions to engage in other opportunities as they come before you. The sun's peeking out now. So thank you very much for your practice today. Really grateful. Lovely to be with you all.
Thank you, Suzanne. And just a reminder to everyone to consider making a donation to the Zochen Foundation or becoming a member. I sent 2 links earlier, one to the upcoming masterclass and one to make a donation and one to become a member. So we hope you can join us. Peace to all.